get intensely focused on the change that you're going to make for next year, like the habits, because behaviors and habits that stay the same year after year will never yield you different results. Will never yield you. In fact, the habits and behaviors that you got now going into next year will probably yield you less results.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so get clear on what those habits and changes are. Right. Get clear right now on here are the things that I need to commit to now, because habits take time to build. And so if you start those habits now, if you get intensely focused, start those habits now, you'll finish the year strong, you'll start the year strong, and then you'll ingrain new habits that are going to be the habits and behaviors that are going to get you to where you want to go next year.
Hey, Jack Lehr down in Lehr's Lair. So I get to welcome a special guest. This gentleman came into my world a number of years ago. He actually was my coach, my goodness sake. I'm super excited to welcome Jarrod Davis. Jarrod, welcome, brother.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm excited, man. We've got some history. I've watched you and your team grow over the years. You've got some massive growth over the years, and dude, you're killing it. You're always killing it. You were killing it back then, and you're still killing it now.
Well, more importantly, Jarrod is the reason for all of our growth. Without him in my world, we would have never done anything.
I would like to believe that too. Yes, absolutely. Jack is also wise. He's also a wise guy.
Definitely a wise guy.
Yeah.
I think the thing is to give credit where credit's due. And like Jarrod helping me when I entered coaching, like you were my first coach. And I was like, as an athlete, as a business owner, I never thought about it in the real estate world. And then I got this phone call, we got connected, and I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. So just ahead of everything, I'm truly grateful for what you've done for me personally, and also for our teams over the years. And we still use a lot of Jarrod-isms that I do anyway to help our team. So thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. No, it was great. I love coaching your team. Coaching is easy when you're coaching people who want to be coached. Does that make sense? You coach people all the time. And so coaching is fun and easy when you're coaching people who are intensely focused, are determined to grow and are intentional in their activities. So coaching becomes easy and fun when you're coaching people like that. Coaching becomes a pain in the butt when you're pushing rocks uphill. So you know what I'm talking about. So for you guys and your team, you are always like that. I mean, every single one, you have a talent or whatever you want to call it of bringing people in that are just like you and intensely focused. And man, I loved coaching you guys because everybody was always engaged and they wanted to take it to the next level. They wanted to learn, and man, it was awesome.
Yeah, and I think maybe also talk a little bit about and we'll get into our origin a little bit more, but I think one of the things that a lot of folks get into coaching and they think they need to stay with that coach for 19 years or 3 years or 5 years. And honest to goodness, we were together for maybe 2-3 years. And then, it's like, hey, it's time to expand.
Yeah. Well, no, listen, I bring a certain level of talent, experience, knowledge, intention, and other coaches bring a different, experience, knowledge level and intention, and so I always say it. I mean, I welcome it when a client says, hey, what do you think of us doing this or us doing that? Yeah, I mean, you can stay with the coach forever, but man, there's lots of coaches bring lots of talent. And we have lots of talent from way different areas, all the way, because our business is built on many different pillars, right? And it's, so while I might be good in certain pillars, there are other coaches that are way better in other pillars, right? So for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Jarrod has this incredible origin that I got to learn, just through our friendship and not just that, but also social media, and get to see some posts with your family. But a little bit on your origin, how did you get into real estate and what did you do before? I think that's a big part of Jarrod.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Real estate was never my intention. It wasn't what I did. And I am very much a passion-based person. I chase my passions. I do what I love. I believe life is about doing what you love. And if you can find ways to make money doing what you love. And so from early age, that was my goal. Like my goal was to go do what I love. And so I, loved animals, loved animal training. I would go to every zoo and I would go to every park. And I grew up in northern Canada in a mining town, right? Like a small mining town where we had snow 10 months of the year. In the winter, it was dark, probably like, 14, if not 16 hours of the day. Like it was just pitch black. So like I grew up there. So I grew up in a very sheltered lifestyle. But man, I always, wanted to, like Jack Hanna, who always did animal adventures was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
thing. And so I did the research and I researched what school do these places higher ed of, because I was like went to the Sea Worlds, I went to all that, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be the killer whale trainer, I want to be the dolphin person, I want to be all of that. So I figured out where they went to school. I applied and I got into that school, and I graduated from that school at a very young age, at 19.
Wow.
And so I went directly into animal training. And so I did movies and television for a year with animal training, and then my company got a call from Siegfried and Roy in Las Vegas and said, "Hey, we're looking for animal trainers. They don't ever have positions open. We have two positions open, and do you know anyone?" They asked around, and I said, at 19, that sounds like something that would be interesting. So,
Right.
at 19, I hiked it over to Vegas, pretty much lived in the Mirage for a year and a half in a room there. And I started working for Siegfried and Roy in Las Vegas. And so, did what I loved. Let's be real. Sometimes the jobs that you love don't pay you the money that you want to make. And so I was lucky to be in a world of wealth and fame and all of that sort of stuff. So I got invited to listen in on some meetings with some of these big casino owners like Steve Wynn, Kirk Kerkorian, all of those, when they were trading, and it was back when they were trading airspace.
Okay.
Like they were trading airspace. And then one of the guys in there who was related to the MGM, saw a 19-year-old in there, just kind of started conversation with me and said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just kind of interested and learning this stuff." And I was just sitting back in the corner just listening. I was just like a guest in this kind of room. And and then he said to me, how good are you with your hands? And being in Vegas, I didn't know exactly where that was going, but
Right.
but but then I was like, okay, yeah, I could do the work. And so he said, "Listen, would you be interested in, if I bought a house with you, you moved in and you kind of fixed up the house and then we resold it?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I was 19, I was single, and truly, I really didn't have anywhere to live. I mean, not that I couldn't afford to live anywhere, but I was just, in an apartment." And so that's what I did with this guy. Is he bought the house. I would go in, I would fix it. I actually had a little microwave cart that I would put my microwave on, and I would live in the master bedroom with bathroom, and then I would fix up the whole house, and then I would move out of there and then fix up the master, and then we would sell it, and he would split the
Yeah.
proceeds with me. And I got really good at it, to a point where he said, "Man, just go do it on your own." Like, he was like, for me, he was a mentor that I can never replace. Cause like, then he just went, "Man, you're like, you don't need me anymore. Why don't you go do it yourself?" And so then I realized, wait a minute, real estate agents are getting paid a lot of money for
Right.
for doing this. So what about this? What if I get my license and I go out and I use that commission put back into the house? And so that's how I originally got my license. And I just started, doing that in real estate to make extra money, right? Because and so my introduction into real estate was more from an investment perspective. And then agents would come to me and go, "Hey, like, you're doing really well with that. Can you show me what you're doing? Like, how are you doing? What are you doing?" And so I came in from that perspective.
Hmm.
And then my passion became my hobby. So eventually I was doing so well in real estate that I left the kind of animal training business. And I started a nonprofit animal rescue, because animals were my passion. It's what I was. And so we started a nonprofit animal rescue in 2000. Still today, it exists in Florida. And real estate has become kind of my thing. And then I, grew in real estate, did real well, built a team, built an office, sold an office, built another one, sold it, ran a team, and then I got into coaching, and then I've been coaching ever since. So, I mean, that's a long span, but that's kind of, fast forward how it happened.
It's funny because everybody sees the now and they forget about all those things that led to today.
Yeah.
So, but that's shaped you. And I think you have something down in Florida with your, like you're doing something down there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, so our nonprofit rescue is still in Florida. And right now, again, we're a private facility. And you know, my goal was to give people experiences, right? Like I want them to experience the animals. Like it's part of what I do. So we created the rescue more of as a private facility. And we stay pretty quiet, pretty private. So now we're building out, and we're right in the process of building it out this year. We're just outside of Orlando, and we're going to be building out kind of a retreat for animals, and where we can bring people and animals together, and teach them about the world, about preservation and conservation, and the importance of animals, and the truth and the reality of animals in captivity, right? Because there is that whole, oh, animals should be free. And listen, in a perfect world, I'd love that. Like I'd love just for no animals to be in captivity, but that's just not the real world that we live in, right? The real world that we live in is that animals in the wild are suffering due to habitat loss, due to their homes being destroyed through fires and cutting down trees, and all of that stuff is the harsh reality of the wild, right? And so,
right.
but if we don't teach how we can make a difference in the future with that, then that won't exist. So these animals that, listen, happen to be in captivity, no different, are treated right. And as long as we give them everything they need, then they're ambassadors for the people, for the animals that are in the wild, because the wild is not the greatest place. Matter of fact, if I was an animal, I'd rather be, at the Philadelphia Zoo than in the wild, right? Like that's the reality of it, right? So yeah, I know, not real estate, but that's my passion. That's what I love doing. And so my goal now is to bring people and animals together at our facility in Florida to help teach that. And retirement project.
Yeah.
Sometime I got to retire. You know how it goes.
I but just think about that, like that passion, and you have this incredible passion with animals, and then you found an opportunity with real estate to build income, build wealth to be able to support that passion. And I think that's a lot of things like people forget. And you and I get to interview a lot of folks to potentially join a team, and they're like, oh, like I love real estate, I love HGTV, I love Selling Sunset, all that stuff. And they forget about like their passion, because just think about it. Like we built up some very successful folks, and if like they can have a really killer year, and then they realize that, oh my gosh, I sold a lot of houses, made a ton of income, and my life kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having a passion is critical.
Yeah, well, it goes back to it, and again, I'm not a big fluffy guy, right? Well, I'm big, but I'm just not that fluffy. But the like, I'm not that whole, oh, what's your big why, and tell me your big why. Like, I'm not a, like, listen, if you want your why to be a Lamborghini, that's okay. It doesn't have to be, but I do believe that we all have, that we're put on this earth for a purpose, and we got to find that purpose. And when we find that purpose, then we're willing to go out and chase it. And so a lot of people think that purpose is money, and really the purpose is never money. And you're doing it. And so a lot of people go and chase the money, and then they get to the money and they go, wait a minute, this is not exactly what I wanted. And so then they find their purpose. And so for me, I was lucky that I found my purpose at a young age, which I think gave me the energy, the effort to go out and focus on making the money to serve that purpose, right? And so, like, I know you well enough to know that you have some passions and purposes in the background, and that's why you do what you do. But man, it gives us energy, gives us excitement, because let's be real estate can be a drag. Like, if like real estate can be tough, like mentally, it can be exhausting. It can be like, there's a lot of things about real estate that if that is your only reason for life, man, you'll soon find out that, oh wow, it's not as great as I thought it would be, right? And a lot of people get in it because they see all this glamour and like selling sunset, and that's not the reason, right?
It isn't. And I think like what you talked about a little bit is the why. And some people go, and Sarah and I, when we interview, like we stopped asking about the why, because we've determined that we've had folks with incredible whys,
Yeah.
like the most incredible why that brings tears to our eyes. And they're still, I'm just going to say it right now, lazy as fuck. And they don't have
Yeah.
a great work ethic, and they don't do the things necessary to advance their business. And then we've had folks that don't have a why whatsoever. They have a purpose, but they have but they are super driven to like
Yep.
really go kill it in life.
Yep.
So a strong why is never a reason to hire anybody.
No, I agree. I mean, and some people don't, like, they think they know their why, but they don't, like, they don't, like, listen, let's be honest, at 19, 20 years old, I didn't know that my why was what I'm doing, right? Like, you grow into your why, you grow into what you do. And so, at why, I was like, I'm 19 in Vegas, I'm single, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm living at the Mirage. Like, that was my why back then, right? Like, come on, right? But it changes over time, and then there's a point at which in your life you figure it out, and you just go, that's why, like, that's what I'm about, that's who I am. Like, we call it, as the older generation, we call that maturity, but like, that's a part of maturity, right? And so even with all these young jits, that's why, like, they don't even know what their why is yet, and so they just want to come in and work and make money, right? And so that's good. And I know you're a master at hiring some of those, because I've seen them go, I've seen them work with you, I've seen them go through. You've brought up some incredible people, within your organization.
Yeah. And I think that's like, so let's take this over to the real estate, because it is closely tied, in my opinion. But I believe, like, we're in this world right now where there's a ton of opportunity, but I think many are struggling with the mindset.
Yeah.
And like, your thoughts on that, like the biggest opportunity for growth for someone in real estate right now?
Well, for 6,000 years, it's always been opportunity mixed with difficulty. It's been opportunity mixed with difficulty. And so and it's never, ever changed. Sometimes the opportunity outshines where it's difficult. Like, we just came from a market where, man, if you had a buyer and you had a seller, the seller was, yeah, I'm going to sell my house for $5 million more than what I bought it for. And a buyer was like, I'm willing to do it. Let's just do it. Let's do it yesterday. Right? Like, we came from that. Now, was there difficulty mixed in with that opportunity? Right? There was lots. Like, we got to see it. We got to see agents putting in multiple offers. We got to see, like, there's tons of that stuff that, as a real estate agent, even though that opportunity looks so amazing outside looking in, inside there's lots of difficulties that got mixed in with that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it just so happens that the opportunities outshine the difficulties. Right now, from a mindset perspective, the difficulties are outshining the opportunities, which means it's harder to find the opportunities if you aren't looking for them. And so we can talk about, again, we can talk about interest rates being high. We can talk about buyer demand being down. We can talk about the economy being shaky. We can talk about inflation. We can talk about political unrest. Like, we can talk about all of that stuff. We can talk about war. Like, I mean, I coach some clients that right now are dealing emotionally with things going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so we can talk all about that, right? It's easy right now to find the difficulties in our business. And so therefore it plays a toll on people's mindsets. Right? Because your mind is your control device, man. That's what gets you up in the morning. Like, it's not, it's not our body, it's our mind that gets us up, that gets us into work, that gets us wanting to get rolling. And if our mind isn't right, then our reactions, our behaviors, our habits will never align with what we need them to get to. And the truth is, and I always say this to everybody, oh my gosh, in this market, it's so hard. There's, no one wants to list their home. I don't know, like 30 homes got listed in the last week in your marketplace. Why wasn't one of those yours? Wait, it's because your mindset was that no homes are being listed.
Nobody. Yep. Nobody's doing it, but yet somebody's doing it.
Somebody's doing it, right? And so we've got to have a really clear mindset, just around looking for the opportunities and chasing those opportunities, figuring out how do you make it good. Like, I mean, I talk a lot about language right now because I believe language is the key to finding new opportunities and helping people, right? Like, that's, like, we're all in sales, and sometimes sales are easy. Sometimes you can walk in and go, well, here's an iPhone, and they go, right? And then sometimes you walk in and you're trying to sell something that's not as easy to sell, right? And so we've got to get better. And again, it's drilling down to getting people to understand the market, creating clarity about what's going on. Because, like, let's be honest, like, Jack, I don't know. I mean, I think you're young like me, but interest rates being, 8%, is that really high? Right?
It's
Like,
it's the norm that nobody's used to, that's in the industry, that joined it in the last few years.
Yeah. And so like if I looked at 8% when I started in real, I mean, I've been in real estate for 30 years, 8% would have been, holy cow, I wish it was 8%. Like it's all perspective, right? Like back then, I mean, I'm not gonna say they were high, interest rates. Well, they were higher, they
Yeah.
were 10 to 12%, but man, 8% would have been like, holy cow, I wish it would happen, right? And so it's our mindset around it, because we came from 4 or 5. And so if you got clarity around what that means, like I always tell buyers agents, interest rate is never the problem. What's the problem? The problem is affordability. And so if you don't dig deep enough, if a buyer walks into to you and goes, yeah, I'm not ready to buy right now because interest rates are high, and if you don't dig deep enough to understand what he means, then you're letting a buyer walk out, because interest rate is not his problem. It's affordability. And so you got to just find out, well, what would be affordable for you? Like, what is your monthly payment? What does that look like? And then you go find him what he can afford, and just go. Like, he's being told by the world that interest rates are high, so he is like a robot. You got to remember, most humans are like robots. They hear, oh, interest rates are high, hey, I can't buy a house because interest rates are high. And that's not the truth. It's just the truth in their minds, right? But the reality is that we just need to determine what affordability is,
I
right?
mean,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
the stock market's dropping. Great. Listen, how much money do you got in the stock market? Well, I don't have any. Great. So we got nothing to worry about.
But they get caught up in the news. The
Oh
news.
man.
Listen, I talk about this. Like, you don't see something. You rarely see something on the news where somebody's doing a really good deed. They do that on occasion, but certainly it's the crashes, it's the wars, it's the stupid, and that's what draws viewers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and then we start saying it out loud, like the stupid shit. And when we start saying all this negative stuff out loud, it's better to just keep our mouths shut so we don't magnify it, and let's just at least try to stay neutral. But boy, the lid is the most important part in this.
Oh man, and again, so it's I have a sign up on my thing here that says, look for the good, see the good will find you. Right. And so, but we're it's so easy for us to look at all the bad stuff that's going on. Like, I mean, I make it, I laugh because there's this whole big thing in our industry right now about this lawsuit and commissions, and man, stop letting that distract you. Nothing's going to change for you anytime soon. And here's the truth, the world's about change, and it may change a little bit. Then you adapt and you find the opportunity. Like, that's kind of it. Like, I mean, I make a joke. My son, like, we have his cell phone, right? My son is up in his bedroom. I hear him talking on the phone, and I said, do you realize when I was a kid, you had to talk on the phone in the kitchen? He's like, what, we ain't talking on the phone in the kitchen, because the phone was attached with a wire that was attached to the wall, and there was only one phone in the house that was in the kitchen. You couldn't just take your cell phone to your bedroom, right? And I said, we adapt and we changed, right? That's the way of the world. And so our industry is going to change, but we can't create all this drama around it. We just got to figure out, hey man, where do we go? What's the next step? How do we get ahead of everybody else? Right.
Yeah,
And that's the key.
it is. And again, we talk about the problems that we had versus what's happening today. And like, we thought that was the worst thing. But yet, if I wanted to call my girlfriend, I had to make it in the kitchen where my mom was sitting right outside and could hear the conversation, because that's where I had to make my phone call. That's the only place I had. Life was rough.
Life was rough, right? And you had to share the TV. Can you imagine? Like, I got 3 kids, and the kids go, well, we want our own TV. Listen, when I was young, we had one TV, and we watched what dad wanted to watch. That was it. Like, that's why we watch so much news. And right, and that's the reality. But we're in a changed world, and you adapt and you change. The problem is when change happens and gets harder, people become uncertain. They're filled with fear, and they step back. When the change happens and it's positive and it's fun, we buy into it, we create excitement around it, and we move forward. Doesn't matter, change is change. There's opportunity everywhere. And so when there's uncertainty, you got to find and figure out where there's certainty. Like, where is there certainty? Where, like, listen, I know for sure homes are going to sell. Like, I know that someone's going to buy homes. Here's the truth. We get this whole, well, no one's going to sell their home that's got it listed that had a mortgage for 3%. Well, how about this? The guy who gets transferred from Philadelphia to Orlando will sell his house, who's listed for 3%. the guy who bought this big house in a really good market, who had a family that had it for 3%, that now just wants to go live in a van down by the river, will sell his house.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, people will sell their house when they're listed at 3%. Just not everybody. Just not everybody.
Everybody's on that bandwagon when one that's 2-3% and opportunity galore. But here's the thing: like when we get so focused on the lawsuit, when we get so focused on and I'm stepping back into the realtor side of business right now. Like you see the posts that are going on and the negativity, and they're talking about the lawsuit. They're talking about the high interest rates. They're talking about the CRM that was purchased by another company. It's just one more excuse. And it's amazing the focus that goes on that versus the focus on the opportunities that are sitting right in front of us. Like you and I see them.
Yeah, it's easy for us. Right? Matter of fact, I'm going to speak from speaking into team leaders that run teams, because as team leaders, it's easy for us to see those. The majority of people don't. And so we've got to teach our people. We got to show them our opportunities, because they don't see them like that. And man, listen, it's easy. Like I say to my kids all the time when they come to me with challenges or problems, and I just simply say to them, is the story you're telling me the real story? Like, is it the real story, or is it a story you're making up based on the future of what you think is going to happen? Because if it's the real story, cool. But if it's not the real story, how about you change that story in a better direction? How can you change that story in your brain to make it better? How do you change that story? Right? Instead of coming to me going, well, Jarrod, there's no, or like, listen, there's not going to be any buyer agency ever again. There's going to be no buyer. Okay, but wait. That's a story you're making up in your head based on something that you're hearing. What if that story was different? What if that story was different? What if there was change? How do you tell yourself a different story so it's something you can chase and not something you can run from, right? Like that's the reality of it. And as humans, we tend to tell ourselves stories that we want to run from instead of chase.
We start believing the stuff we say or you hear, and 100%. A lot of it's not even true. So, change that narrative. Like, let's just talk a little bit about like buyer agency agreement. Like my team's been doing it for 10 years.
Yep.
Guess what? You want to work with us? This is what it looks like. It's a we're full service. That means 3% plus a transaction fee. And it's real super simple. If you want to work with us, we have an abundance mentality, because we know that some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting next. We are going to go out and work with those that want to work with us.
Yeah.
And it's super simple. And like I was on an event yesterday on Zoom and listened to the people, pissing and moaning about what this is going to like ruin us. Yes, it's probably going to ruin you.
Yeah.
It really is, because you don't have the ability to adapt, pivot, make any changes. The market's changing all the time.
Yeah. Yep, all the time. And you've got to adapt and change. And like, again, buyer agency, like it baffles me, because you talk to somebody and I just say to them, they talk to me about buyer, like the very first thing when they go, well, I want you to talk about buyer agency. And I go right into, hey, listen, let's talk about getting a listing, blah, 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 blah. Like, tell me, what do you do? What's the steps? What's the process? Blah, and they tell me, they're like, wait a minute, we're supposed to talk about buyer agency. I'm like, but what's the steps? What's the process? What do you do when you get to the end? Well, we sign a listing agreement. I'm like, great. So now we're just going to take the word listing out of all that process, and we're just going to stick the word buyer in there, because you understand and you seem to grasp the fact that you can go out and get listing agreements. As a matter of fact, you would not take a listing without a listing agreement, yet you push back and you go, holy cow, no one's going to sign these. Well, that's not true. I did, like you say, you've done it for the last 10 years. I mean, I did real estate, whatever, when Jesus was a baby. And our team had a buyer agency back then that we signed, right? And the buyer agency for me as the team leader wasn't that they had to sign it. It was that I ran into struggles on my team that I don't think my agents were speaking to the buyers in giving them the right information out of the gate. The buyer agency for me was a requirement to run through it. So at least I knew they were having the right conversations with buyers.
Yeah, it was a check
right? And
mark. Yep.
yeah, it was a check mark. Okay, they went through it. So they, they had the conversation of agency. They told them what their job was. They told them what the expectations were out of the gate, right? Because we even covered, if you see it for sale by owner, don't hesitate to reach out to us, right? If you're going on an open house, this like that was kind of covered in our buyer agency. Yet an agents come to us and go, I can't believe it. I worked with this buyer 5 weeks and they went to an open house and bought it from the agent. Well, did you discuss it with them that they didn't have to do that you could have represented them? Well, no, but shouldn't they know that? No, they shouldn't. That's your job. Right?
It's the simple stuff, but here's the thing: most don't do it. And like we go off of some great statistics that are out there to find out that most agents don't have a buyer agency agreement. That's why when you say who's your agent or who's your realtor, or versus saying, hey, Jarrod, has anybody sat down with you to explain the buying process?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people say no. They have no idea what a buyer agency agreement is. But when you sit down with them and you explain the process, what it looks like to work with you, and you truly value yourself, like we've gone into markets where they were only paying 1% on the buyer side, and we taught them how to come in and get 3% plus on those deals, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they didn't fight me at all because you explained what it looks like to work with you."
Yeah, I was on a call the other day about this again, that same thing, and someone said to me, "Well, buyer commission is going to totally go away." And I said, "Wow, so you think that you have zero value as a buyer's agent? Like that's what you think?" And they're like, "Well, no, of course I think I have value." Well, you're not like if you think it's going to go away, you're not selling that to me very good. You're not telling me that, listen, it's never going to go away because we bring so much value to a buyer, and I explain it to them, and when they leave a buyer presentation with me, they understand why I make money because they get it. What you're telling me is that it's going to go away because you're bringing no value to them, and you better change that mindset, because if not, like you said, it is going to go away for you. It is going to go away for you.
You have that
So
sign
silly.
on the door that talks about the positivity side. It's just the
Yep.
opposite.
Yep.
Seek it, believe it, it becomes reality. Whether it's the positive, negative.
And that's like that is our mindset. So when we talk about agents that come in and having a strong mindset, we got to understand how to defend the negativity, how to put our barriers up, and look for opportunities. For billions of years, there's been opportunity mixed with difficulty, or difficulty mixed with opportunity. It's how you see and what you look for is what you find, right? What you see and look for is what you find. And it's easy to seek, like, I don't watch the news. Why don't I watch the news? Because I don't need to see all the difficulty. And yes, there's probably, am I missing some important stuff? Probably. But at the end of the day, I'd rather miss that important stuff than hear all the garbage, because I want to go out and find the good stuff. I want to go out and seek out things that give me energy, that gives me positivity, that pushes me forward, rather than stuff that drags me backwards. Because I know that in all difficult times, there's still going to be opportunity. I know that.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's really important here, is that stop watching the effing news. Like, so what I do is I record it to watch the weather, because I want to see what's going on in the next 7 days. And even sometimes when I watch that, they throw in some bullshit that makes me go, why did I record this? Because somebody threw in their narrative on, like, the end of the world's coming. Yep. So we just have to be careful what we expose ourselves to.
100%. Yep.
So my suggestion is we get off of social media when it comes to the stupid, and stop scaring the public with what's really not even a problem.
Like, I almost unfriended a bunch of people just like literally about that whole transition of the CRM being bought out by other people. Like, I almost unfriended people because I don't want to hear it. Like, come on, like there's so much more. How about this? Sit down and make your calls and go help a buyer, go help a seller. Like, stop worrying about that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I sure feel that I'm not.
Yeah, I definitely unfollowed a lot. My wonderful fake book friends and Insta people. I think we get these people get so caught up in the stupid. And again, you saw the comments. So we have the high interest rates, we have the lawsuit, we have the CRM, but there's going to be something tomorrow, and there's going to be something the next day, and there's going to be an election. It's always going to be an excuse.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing, right? Oh, it's election year coming in and people don't buy houses. And I'm like, listen, there's one person that will definitely be buying a house, right? Like we know the president is going to be moving into a house, go after like whatever. Like he's going to like we know something's going to happen. Like we know things are happening, right? It's just we buy into this fake world that doesn't exist, and it really does affect how we move forward with everything we do, right? Like I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm in the animal industry world. Like, let's be honest. Tons of people saw what was it, Tiger King, right? And so everybody now thinks that that's the animal world, right? And I'm like, it's such fake news. But like government, you'd be surprised at how much regulation came down because of that stupid show
Mm,
about two crazy people that happened to have animals. Like that show wasn't about animals; it was about two crazy people. Like that. Let's be clear.
yeah.
And maybe a few crazies on the outside, but mostly two crazy people. And they created this. The animals were just, but man, regulation came down, and so in our industry, everybody's got the mindset of, well, animals are good. There's going to be no animals in captivity anymore. And I'm like, how is that even going to be possible? Like, are we just going to have a massacre? Because like, have you gone to the zoo? Like what's going to happen, right? Like, it's not that, and you're creating all this fake stories around stuff that's just not going to happen. But even in other industries, it's not. The same thing happens, right? The reality is the world will move on. This will be yesterday's news, and then we'll be moving forward. Stop buying in to crap.
Yep. So Jarrod, great coach, super incredible with us. What, besides the mindset and watching the stupid shit and buying into it, what is something that somebody can do right now to move the needle and advance their business outside of the mindset and stop watching the stupid shit?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're an important time of the year, right? So first of all, there's the two ends of the spectrum, right? When I always say it, there's the distraction end, and we live in a distracted world. Matter of fact, you probably got phones sitting in front of you right now, like I do, and there's Facebook and Instagram, your emails popping up, you got 500 different messengers that you check every day. We live in a world of distraction. The successful get intensely focused, right? And so, but they also know when it's okay to be distracted and when it's okay to be focused. Because it's, listen, let's, like I sit on the couch sometimes at night and I just scroll through my Facebook, and I do, it's an important piece of our business, but you got to know when to be focused and when not to. And so right now, at this time of year, biggest opportunity you have is your year's not over, man. Like your year is not over. And so if I was doing anything right now in real estate, I would be intensely focused on the three things that matter most: talking to more people, lead generation, creating massive visibility through social media, and mastering your skills around something specific. And man, I'm going to tell you, it should be language. If you're not studying language patterns right now and studying the language of sales, then you are going to be left behind. Right. And so those three things, and get intensely focused in the next 3 or 4 weeks on that, because if you're intensely focused on the next 3 or 4 weeks on that, you'll finish the year strong and you'll start the year strong. Most real estate agents screw up at this time of year. Like in the US, I make a joke because I call it Thanks Christmas. Like they're like, oh, Thanksgiving is coming, and then the year is over, and we get after Thanksgiving, we're gonna go shopping for Christmas. But man, that's a key piece of the time of the year, because you need to finish strong and start strong. And the second thing, or well, that's third. The third thing is get intensely focused on the change that you're going to make for next year, like the habits, because behaviors and habits that stay the same year after year will never yield you different results. Will never yield you. In fact, the habits and behaviors that you got now going into next year will probably yield you less results.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so get clear on what those habits and changes are. Right. Get clear right now on, here are the things that I need to commit to now, because habits take time to build. And so if you start those habits now, if you get intensely focused, start those habits now, you'll finish the year strong, you'll start the year strong, and then you'll ingrain new habits that are going to be the habits and behaviors that are going to get you to where you want to go next year. Now, you got to get clear on those, right? You got to get massively clear on those, because if you aren't, then you're poking and hoping. Here's the problem with us. Here's the problem with great salespeople. We are great by flying by the seat of our pants, but that's only going to get you so far, right? Like I remember Tom telling me, like, where you are right now is where you got because you're flying by the seat of your pants. Where you're going is way bigger than that. Right. And that's where I learned to say, how do I get intensely focused, the things that matter most, change behaviors and habits that are going to yield me the results that I want? That's the big piece.
I mean, that's massive. And I think if everybody just listened to the last few minutes of this, and Jarrod, like, we all owe you a ton of money, because if we all embrace those few items, it makes a big difference. And
Yeah.
I love it when you say, so I always talk about the real estate people in our world in the Northeast, like they say, oh my gosh, the spring's the best time to do anything. That's when the market is. And I love it when like our world right now, they were Halloweening since August when I went to Lowe's and that first skeleton was out there. And then they're Thanksgiving it, and they're doing, doing all the turkey stuff. And then they're Halloweening it to Christmasing it to Hanukkahing it to New Year's Eving it.
Yep.
And then they don't even start until like February. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I got my resolution. And what we do 60 to 90 days prior is what's happening today in our business.
That's why today is so important. Like when you say that to me, that's why I say today is so important. You got to look 60, 90 days down the road, and you're either going to come from a place of abundance or you're going to come from a place of scarcity. And that's where most agents start. They come into the new year and go, I got nothing under contract. What do I need to do? And with all due respect, it's too late, because we're in a 30, 60, 90-day business. It's too late. And then they create all this anxiety, all this panic until that's why their spring market, like agents go, the spring market's so good. It's because you didn't do anything till January, and you have January, February, March, and your spring market feels good. Where's the opportunity for agents? Opportunity is, man, do it now, because all those agents that are going, oh, we're going to wait till spring because spring is the best market, are losing what's happening over the next 4 or 5 months because they're not putting any effort into it. Plain and simple.
Like I could just give you like results on our team. Like we just had our best month ever. And it's because what we started doing 90 days ago, and the things that they're doing right now with the growth that's happening right here. Like I think 8 out of the last 9 Decembers was our best month.
Yep.
Stop telling yourself the bullshit and
man.
believe in it.
Yeah, you can't.
Because this is a great time.
Yeah. And as a coach, that's what I spend most of my day doing, is changing people's stories about what is happening today and how that's going to affect their tomorrow. Right. That's what I do, because it's if we can change those stories, man, and man, it's easy. Like, here's the thing. If you control it, then if you can control the narrative, then you change the story. The problem is you're letting someone else tell you the narrative, and therefore you're creating your own story based around other people's narratives rather than you controlling your own narrative, man. And that I've learned to master that. Okay, here's the narrative I'm being told. Here's the narrative I want to be the reality, and then I go create that reality. Simple, right? So
it's rather simple stuff, right?
Yep. For sure.
Jarrod, I'm super grateful that we got to spend some time together. Jarrod Davis, all the way from the Canadian world of where are you from?
Listen, I'm Canada. I'm Florida. Well, I'm in Ottawa, Canada. I'm here. My family's here. So my kids are going to school here. My wife is from Orlando. And so like we fly, like I fly over you, like more like if you look up and wave, there's a good chance you're waving at me. But we fly back and forth to Florida. My business was built in Florida. My wife is from Florida. We have a house there. And so we spend equal time in both places. I always say the best part about me being Canadian is that I'm American, and the best part about me being American is that I'm Canadian. So like I use that both ways.
There was one thing that I remember you saying before we end here today, and it was about goals. You either change your goals or you change your what?
Habits or behaviors.
There you go.
It's
simple. It's the simple stuff that we just forget. So Jarrod Davis, grateful that you're here with me today. I hope that this resonated with those out there. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. And Jarrod Davis, grateful for you, brother.
Peace out, my friend.